The typed letter inside the package ended with a cheerful note: "May you never have to buy another flashlight." When Wayne Greavette pushed the button, the flashlight exploded in his hands. Moffat sits in southern Ontario, a rural community between Guelph and Milton, where farmland stretches for miles and neighbors know each other by name. In 1996, it was the kind of place where you could leave your door unlocked, where mail arrived in roadside boxes, where Christmas packages from unknown senders didn't automatically trigger suspicion. Wayne and Diane Greavette had recently purchased a farm on Concession 11, a quiet country road lined with properties that measured in acres rather than lots. The farm had something special: an artesian well that produced clean, cold water naturally pressurized from deep underground. Wayne and Diane planned to bottle and sell that water. They'd named the venture D&L Spring Water. December 1996 was meant to be the beginning of their new life. Instead, it became the date that would haunt their family forever. Wayne Greavette was 42 years old in December 1996. He'd married his wife Diane when he was 17, young by any standard, but they'd made it work. 25 years of marriage. 2 children, Justin, now 21, and Danielle, 19. They were the kind of couple who built a life together slowly, deliberately, always planning for the next step. Wayne worked in the food and beverage packaging industry. His job at SERGE, a company near Rockwood that installed beverage equipment, required technical knowledge and client relationships. He traveled for work sometimes. He knew the industry. He understood equipment, logistics, the business side of beverage production. That's probably what gave him the idea for the spring water company. Why not use the natural resource literally flowing beneath their new property? Ontario spring water had market potential. They could start small, build gradually, maybe eventually sell to a larger distributor. It was the kind of entrepreneurial dream that felt achievable, practical. December 12th, 1996 fell on a Thursday. The temperature hovered around freezing. Christmas was less than 2 weeks away. Wayne was home that afternoon, working on D&L's spring water business. Their farmhouse doubled as an office, one of those practical arrangements common in family-run ventures. Justin went out to check the mailbox around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Rural mail delivery meant packages could arrive throughout the day. When he walked back to the house, he was carrying several letters and a package addressed to his father. The package wasn't large, maybe the size of a hardcover book. It was wrapped in white packing paper with a hunter green inner lining tied with a white ribbon, the kind of wrapping that suggested care, that looked like a Christmas gift. No return address, but Wayne's name and address were clearly typed on the label. Canada Post had delivered it through their regular system. Justin brought it inside and handed it to his father. Early Christmas present, maybe? A client sending something? Wayne opened it at the kitchen table while Justin and Diane were nearby. Wayne's brother was visiting that day too. Inside the wrapping was a cardboard box, specifically a Domaine d'Or wine cask. Domaine d'Or was cheap Ontario wine, the kind you'd buy in bulk at the liquor store. But this box had been emptied. Someone had removed the wine and repurposed the sturdy cardboard container. Stuffed inside the box, acting as padding, were crumpled newspaper flyers. One was from Copeland Lumber in Milton, a building supply store about 20 minutes away. Another was from a Castle Building Center in a different part of southern Ontario. The newspapers were from remote areas, nothing directly local to Moffat. At the center of all this padding was a Duracell floating lantern flashlight. Yellow plastic, waterproof, the kind marketed for boating or camping. And there was a letter, typed on a typewriter, not a computer. Wayne picked up the letter and began reading. It was formatted like a business proposal, professional looking at first glance. It referenced Lisa and Joe, 2 people who worked at SERGE with Wayne. The proposal suggested some kind of business opportunity, though the details were vague. The return address listed was for a company called William J. French and Associates. The letter's closing line seemed friendly, almost jovial. May you never have to buy another flashlight. While Wayne was reading, Justin picked up the flashlight. It was hefty, solid. He tried pushing the button to turn it on. Nothing happened. He tried again. Still nothing. Wayne took the flashlight from his son. Maybe the batteries were dead. Maybe there was a trick to it. He sat down on the couch, Justin beside him, Diane nearby. Wayne examined the flashlight, looking for the issue. He pushed the button. The explosion was instantaneous, the room filled with smoke and the deafening sound of detonation. Shrapnel, galvanized roofing nails packed around the explosive, blasted outward in every direction. The nails punched through the floor, through the ceiling, through drywall. The force was devastating in the small space. Wayne died immediately. The explosive device had been designed to kill whoever activated it, and it succeeded. He slumped forward, the flashlight, or what remained of it, still in his hands. Justin and Diane were right there, close enough to be hit by shrapnel, close enough to be deafened by the blast, close enough to see Wayne die. Both sustained injuries, though miraculously not fatal ones. Justin's hands were burned. Diane had cuts from flying debris. Justin called 911. The recording of that call would later be used in CBC documentary investigations into the case. His voice, young, panicked, trying to describe what had just happened, captured the impossible reality. Someone had mailed a bomb to his father, and it had exploded in their home. Ontario Provincial Police arrived within minutes. Paramedics arrived. But there was nothing they could do for Wayne. The bomb had been specifically constructed to be lethal. Plastic explosives, likely an emulsion type, had been packed inside the flashlight along with the nails. A blasting cap had been rigged to the button. Push the button, complete the circuit, trigger the detonation. This wasn't accidental. This wasn't a prank gone wrong. Someone had built this device with the intention of killing Wayne Greavette. The Ontario Provincial Police Criminal Investigation Branch took over the case immediately. A bomb sent through the mail to kill a specific target was rare in Canada. This wasn't gang violence. This wasn't a random attack. This was targeted, premeditated murder using an improvised explosive device. Detective Inspector Randy Gaynor, who would later speak about the case publicly, emphasized that the OPP considers all unsolved homicides active cases. "We never close a case," he told reporters years later. "We follow up on all information that becomes available." But in December 1996, investigators were starting from a challenging position. The device had exploded. Physical evidence was scattered, destroyed, or contaminated. The farmhouse was now a crime scene with blast patterns to analyze, but the bomber was nowhere near it. The package itself became the primary source of evidence. Investigators documented everything: the white packing paper with green lining, the white ribbon, the domain door wine box, the crumpled flyers, the typed letter, and the remnants of the flashlight bomb. The wine box was particularly interesting. Someone had cut a rectangular section out of one side, presumably to prevent police from tracing the box back to a specific liquor store. That level of forethought suggested planning, caution, awareness of investigative techniques. The flyers were from different regions of southern Ontario: Milton, other communities, nothing that pointed to one specific location. Whoever assembled this package had deliberately used materials that couldn't be traced to a single source. The letter was typed. In 1996, typewriters were still common, but computers and printers were becoming standard. The choice to use a typewriter was notable. Investigators brought in typewriter forensics experts to analyze the font, the key strikes, any irregularities that might identify the specific machine used. Uwe Wachendorf, a typewriter collector and historian, would later examine the letter for CBC's investigation. He explained that different typewriter models leave distinctive marks: the spacing between letters, the pressure of key strikes, worn keys that leave imperfect impressions. But without a suspect typewriter to compare against, the analysis could only narrow down possible models, not identify the killer. The letter referenced Lisa and Joe, real people who worked at SERGE with Wayne. The fake business proposal mentioning them suggested the bomber knew Wayne's professional life, knew who he worked with, wanted to make the package seem legitimate enough that Wayne would open it without suspicion. The return address, William J. French and Associates, was fake. No such company existed, but the names were chosen carefully. Gallic, French, both surnames that also reference languages and cultures. Some investigators wondered if this was coded messaging, if the bomber was playing games with the investigation. DNA testing on the package found 2 hairs inside the packing tape. Neither hair had roots, which limited the analysis. Mitochondrial DNA testing was conducted with FBI assistance, but the results didn't match anyone in law enforcement databases. No fingerprints were found on the wrapping, the box, the letter, or the postage. Whoever built this device had been careful not to leave trace evidence. But there was one promising lead. In the fall of 1996, about a month before the bombing, 2 men had been seen at the Acton post office, about 15 kilometers from Moffat. 2 separate witnesses reported that these men were asking for Wayne Greavette's address. One man was inside the post office asking. The other was outside, also asking. The OPP worked with a forensic artist to create composite sketches based on the witnesses' descriptions. The sketches were released to the public. Someone must recognize these men, investigators thought. Someone must know who they were. The investigation expanded to examine Wayne's life. Who would want him dead? The bombing required technical knowledge, understanding explosives, building a reliable triggering mechanism, calculating the amount of explosive needed to ensure lethality. This wasn't someone's first time working with these materials. Investigators looked at 3 main theories. First, business jealousy. Wayne was developing the Spring Water Company. Was there a competitor who saw D&L Spring Water as a threat? Someone already in the Ontario spring water market who wanted to eliminate competition before it started? Second, workplace conflicts. Wayne worked at Serge in the food and beverage equipment industry. That sector could be competitive. Had Wayne been involved in disputes, contract battles, business deals that went wrong? Third, personal relationships. As the investigation deepened, evidence emerged that Wayne had been involved in relationships with other women. This was difficult for Diane and the children to learn, but investigators had to follow every lead. Had one of these relationships turned dangerous? Had someone's husband or boyfriend found out? Each theory had problems. Business killings are rare, especially in Ontario. Workplace disputes rarely escalate to bombing, and while crimes of passion happen, they're usually impulsive, not carefully planned mail bombings constructed weeks in advance. The OPP put together a task force. They interviewed everyone at SERGE. They interviewed Wayne's clients. They looked into the spring water business, checking for any threats Wayne had received, any conflicts with potential competitors. They investigated the personal relationships, difficult as that was for the family. And they kept coming back to those 2 men at the Acton post office. Why were they asking for Wayne's address? Were they the ones who mailed the package, or were they hired by someone else? Years passed. The case didn't fade from OPP attention, but neither did it progress toward an arrest. In 2009, CBC filmmaker David Ridgen approached Diane Greavette with a proposal. Let him document the family's search for answers. Together, they would investigate Wayne's past, examine the evidence, interview people who knew Wayne professionally and personally. The resulting documentary, The Bomb That Killed Wayne Greavette, revealed complexities in Wayne's life that the family hadn't fully known. The secret relationships, the workplace dynamics at Surge that involved tensions between Wayne and both his boss, Ed Galick Sr., and a co-worker, Ed Galick Jr. The fact that Wayne had made enemies wasn't surprising. Anyone in business for years accumulates some conflicts. But the depth and nature of those conflicts gave investigators additional angles to pursue. One particularly chilling element emerged during the documentary research. An anonymous caller claimed that an outlaw motorcycle club had been involved, at least in facilitating the bombing, if not constructing it themselves. The caller wouldn't provide details or evidence, but the statement raised questions. Motorcycle clubs have been known to carry out contract violence. Had someone hired them to kill Wayne? The problem with all these theories is the lack of concrete evidence linking any specific person or group to the bomb. The typewriter analysis couldn't identify the bomber without a suspect machine to compare. The DNA from the hairs was too limited. The composite sketches generated tips, but none led to arrests. In 2018, CBC revisited the case for Season 4 of their podcast series, Someone Knows Something. Host David Ridgen spent months investigating, interviewing witnesses, examining evidence with fresh perspective. The podcast episodes took listeners through every detail: the construction of the bomb, the investigation techniques, the possible suspects, the family's ongoing pain. Forensic experts analyzed the bomb's construction on the podcast. The explosive was an emulsion type, commercially available for construction or mining but controlled. The blasting cap would have required electrical knowledge to rig properly. The galvanized nails packed around the explosive showed intentional design, not just to kill, but to create shrapnel that would harm anyone nearby. The sophistication suggested experience. This wasn't someone's first time building an explosive device. They knew what they were doing. They knew how to create a reliable trigger. They knew how to pack enough explosive in a small space to ensure lethality. But sophistication doesn't equal uniqueness. Hundreds of people in Ontario had the knowledge to build such a device in 1996. Construction workers who handled explosives, military veterans, anyone with basic electrical knowledge and access to the right materials. The podcast also examined why the crime remained unsolved. Part of it is the nature of mail bombing. The bomber never has to be physically present at the scene. Part of it is the careful evidence elimination. No DNA, no fingerprints, fake return address, generic materials. Part of it is that in 1996, surveillance was limited. No security cameras at every store, no digital trail of online purchases. Everything could be bought with cash, assembled privately, mailed anonymously. The provincial government has maintained a reward for information leading to an arrest and conviction. Originally $50,000, at times increased to $75,000. The OPP continues to accept tips through their Crime Stoppers line, and Wayne Greavette continues to speak publicly about the case, hoping that someone who knows something will finally come forward. She told reporters on the 20th anniversary of Wayne's death, "We all miss Wayne very much and continue to fight. We appeal to all who knew him personally and professionally to step forward with anything they may have that could help us solve his case." The family's mantra has remained constant. Somebody knows something. The person who built the bomb knows. If they hired someone else to mail it, that person knows. If they told anyone about their plan, that person knows. If they bragged about it afterward, someone heard it. If they're connected to an organization that facilitated it, members of that organization know. Time changes things. People who were loyal in 1996 may no longer feel that loyalty in 2025. Relationships that protected secrets back then have dissolved. People have moved, changed jobs, gotten sober, found religion, developed consciences. Someone who stayed silent for years might now be ready to speak. That's what cold case investigators count on, that eventually someone will talk. The farmhouse on Concession 11 is no longer the Greavette home. The family couldn't stay there after Wayne's murder. Too many memories, too much trauma. The couch where Wayne died, the walls that still bore marks from shrapnel, the space where they'd planned to build a business together. Justin Greavette lives with the memory of trying to turn on that flashlight first. He was 21 years old when he watched his father die. That kind of trauma doesn't fade. It reshapes who you are, how you move through the world, what you trust. Diane lives with the knowledge that someone hated Wayne enough to kill him, yet she still doesn't know who or why. For nearly 30 years, she's carried that question. Every December 12th, the anniversary arrives like a wound reopening. Danielle wasn't home that day. She was spared witnessing the explosion. But she lost her father, and she lost him to murder, which means she lost him to someone's deliberate choice. Someone decided Wayne Greavette should die, and then made it happen. The case remains open. Detective Inspector Gaynor wasn't exaggerating when he said the OPP never closes these cases. Every few years, investigators revisit the evidence with new technology, new techniques. DNA analysis improves. Databases expand. Witnesses age and sometimes become willing to talk when they weren't before. The composite sketches of the two men from the Acton post office are still circulated periodically. The OPP still accepts tips. The reward still stands. And the question remains, who built the Christmas flashlight bomb that killed Wayne Greavette? The answer exists. Someone knows. Maybe they're reading this now. Maybe they've carried the secret for 29 years. Maybe they think enough time has passed that it's safe, that they'll never be caught. But cold cases get solved. DNA matches happen. Deathbed confessions occur. Accomplices turn on each other. Technology advances. And families never stop pushing for answers. Wayne Greavette was 42 years old when he died. He was a husband, a father, a businessman with plans for the future. He opened what looked like a Christmas gift and died instantly when it exploded. Someone made that happen. Someone built that bomb, packaged it carefully, addressed it to Wayne, mailed it through Canada Post, and waited for the news that Wayne was dead. That person is still out there, and the investigation continues. Nearly 3 decades have passed since Wayne Greavette's murder, and his case reminds us that some questions don't have answers yet, but that doesn't mean they never will. Cold cases have been solved after 40 years, 50 years, longer. Technology improves. People's consciences catch up with them. Loyalty fades. Secrets slip out. So here's what I'm thinking about. This was clearly personal. The bomber knew enough about Wayne to make the package seem legitimate, to time it for Christmas season, to target him specifically. Does that narrow the suspect pool? Or does it just tell us the killer was careful? What's your theory? Drop it in the comments. If you're into this kind of storytelling, unsolved cases that need attention, investigations that aren't finished, subscribe for more. This is part of the Christmas series, and there are more cases coming. Sometimes the holiday season brings darkness instead of light. This has been Umbra Cases.